In the milestone 75th episode of the Byword, Dave and I will be covering all the big reveals and, let's be honest, the navel-gazing that was DC FanDome 2021. So grab your batarangs and your elusive golden boots, because the Byword begins now. Hey there, nerds. Welcome into the 75th episode of the Nerd Byword podcast, the podcast that thoroughly enjoys dunking on the great American disappointment that is Dean Cain. We have a very special Byword Big Talk planned for you today, as we will dive deep into the depths below and dig out our takes on all the big reveals that came out of DC FanDome 2021. But first, I do believe it's time for... Dave, the Kamala Hive is losing their collective mind, eh?
Yeah, and I'm in that hive, and I am losing my mind. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I am so upset and disappointed a little bit about the continuous, trickling reveals that we're getting of the Miss Marvel Disney Plus television show. All the early news looked really promising. The people working behind the scenes, the casting, lots of talk about, trying to capture the cultural relevance of the comic book, with Kamala Khan, of course, being a Muslim superhero. All of those things looked really good. The early set photos that leaked of the costume, spot on stuff. Very, very, very exciting. And then, discontent in the fandom. Rumors started swirling around that they were altering Kamala Khan's powers for this TV show. And lo and behold, we now have, thanks to Pyramid International, a brand new promotional image that sees Kamala Khan showing off her powers. And I'm going to be honest with you, based on this image, and I'm looking at it right now, it looks more like something like Green Lantern powers. She's making this giant fist out of energy, it looks like, that has sort of these crystalline properties. So it's not Green Lantern, but it's certainly lantern-like. And I find that, disappointing if that's really just, the way they decide to go, because there were so many interesting things that the comic book series has done with her powers, which, to be fair, are a little bit more like Mr. Fantastic. Not the same, though, and I think that's a mistake that the MCU is making here. They think that Kamala Khan's powers are stretchy powers, and they want to keep Mr. Fantastic visually distinct. But Kamala Khan's powers aren't so much stretchy. They're more mass-altering. Like she can... This is her slogan, embiggen, like she can grow really large. She can enlarge certain parts of her body. It's really more about, her mass and how she changes that. And visually, that is so distinct in her own series. But more than that, there are things within the series that rely on these powers that are so integral to the character. To give you an early example, for those of you that have not read Miss Marvel's series, and I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite things that Marvel has produced. Early on, when she first gets her powers, she uses her powers literally to morph into the Carol Danvers version of Miss Marvel, blonde hair and all. And there is this moment where she kind of comes to a self-acceptance, and she realizes in order to be a hero and in order to follow in the footsteps of her idol, she doesn't need to be a blonde white woman. And I think that is so relevant in today's time. And you're not going to be able to get a moment like that when she's making giant energy fists instead. So, based on the promotional image, there's that. There's been additional rumors floating around that they're going to, make her powers wish-based, something about a genie. I don't know about all that. What I do know is, looking at the promotional art, I'm very disappointed with how they are representing her powers. I'm hoping this is a fake out of some kind, but I'm starting to think the MCU has made significant changes to a character that really didn't need significant changes in adaptation, Chris.
Yeah. So, and I want to further underline this. This has not been officially released by Marvel or anything. So here's my hope. I hope that they see this outrage and, they make the necessary corrections, because I've seen precious few people who are exercising, restraint or caution or whatever, because the majority of reactions that I've seen are in line with yours. And I'm I'm not as well steeped in the Kamala mythos as you are, but I know enough due to her interactions with one of my favorites, Miles Morales, um, to kind of get the gist of it. Also, one of the strengths of the Avengers video game was her solo campaign story. So I really hope that they, and even with official Marvel stuff, I mean, I always think back to Hulk and Wakanda, that kind of bait and switch deep fake that we got. So even in officially released stuff, they've kind of pulled the wool over our eyes and stuff. So here's hoping that this is just a bunch of sound and fury in the end, signifying nothing.
Yeah, but I will say in a lot of the officially released stuff, when they try to pull the wool over eyes, the shot of the Hulk running into battle in was it Endgame? They kind of altered the footage in the trailer because they were trying to protect spoilers. I cannot imagine what the purpose would be of releasing promotional images that alter her powers.
Right.
It doesn't seem like there's a spoiler protective purpose to this. And look, I will say it's not like the MCU hasn't made significant changes to characters, and in some cases those were thoroughly needed. I'm looking at you, Shang-Chi. There's some stuff in the comic books, especially the older comic books, that we did not need. So streamlining that and moving it closer to the modern iteration of the character was definitely smart. That being said, Miss Marvel doesn't have this lengthy, history that needs to be corrected. She's a very, new character in the grand scheme of things. And I don't see anything horribly problematic, including her powers, that needs to be corrected. So I don't quite see the motivation for this one, Chris.
Yeah, I also, my other take on this is that this is, if this does indeed turn out to be the case, this is catering to the masses and the general pop audiences and losing kind of an indescribable essence of the character. I think personally to the Madea plays. I was a big fan of the Tyler Perry Madea plays, and then when they kind of went Hollywood, so to speak, and they became films, they kind of lost that indescribable essence of what made them stand out. And so when they went Hollywood and they kind of went for the bigger draw, the general audience, it kind of lost a little bit of the magic. And I hope that's not the case here.
Yeah, I have really still high hopes for this show, even if the powers are not, correct, that maybe they capture what makes her such a fantastic character.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Chris, we have some news to share as well. What have you got?
So it looks like Hayden Christensen is going to be reprising the role of Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, in another Disney Plus series, not just Kenobi, but also now Ahsoka. This is according to multiple sources that told The Hollywood Reporter. A lot of the stuff that is coming out about this series is still kind of under wraps, not a lot being revealed, but the titular star Rosario Dawson herself said on Instagram, quote, "Sky Guy, they know. See you soon, Snips." So I'm all the more excited about this series. I mean, Ahsoka, I've made no secret, is my absolute favorite Star Wars character ever. And so I'm just super stoked for this. I think, we talked about this extensively when we fixed the prequels. A lot of people want to lay a lot of blame at Hayden Christensen's feet with those films, but I don't want to speak for you, Dave, but I don't think coming out of the conversation of those three films, the two that he was in, that was our feeling. It was mostly the blame was laid, at least in our view, on the writing and the script. And I'm excited to see what Hayden Christensen can do in both of these series with some strong writing and some strong creative minds kind of behind the scenes here, and what he can do with some good ingredients.
Yeah, I hope in a lot of ways that this is the redemption story of Star Wars that we've been waiting for, because Hayden Christensen caught a lot of crap for his portrayal of Anakin Skywalker, and I don't think that necessarily lands squarely in his lap. Legend has it that on the set of, I think, Empire Strikes Back, Harrison Ford once said to George Lucas, "You can write this but you sure can't say it." And I think that really applies very strongly to the prequels. So much of the dialogue is just so, stilted and wooden and oddly written that ultimately I don't know how an actor could have delivered some of Anakin's lines in a believable way. It also doesn't help that, by all accounts, George Lucas is not really a actor's director. He's very much into the technical stuff, and so from various interviews and stuff I've read, he doesn't really focus too much on the actors or giving actors notes and trying to get the best out of them. And so I think that kind of shows through. Hayden was a young actor at the time. He probably needed a good director to really direct him. And then you have, our good friend Obi-Wan Kenobi, which, was just, we had a much better, not better, but more seasoned actor, I guess, who probably could iron over some of the stuff without needing a strong director for actors. So, this I think would be very welcome in the fandom if he has this great return to the franchise and sort of redeems himself a little bit. I'm looking forward to what they do with him in Kenobi. I'm also very much looking forward to what they're doing with him in the Ahsoka series, because from my understanding, this takes place after Return of the Jedi, which means he's dead. So either we're getting flashbacks or we're getting Force Ghost Anakin talking to her, which would be fascinating, and could put some interesting closure on that relationship. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well, and I think I've detailed this on the show before, but in another podcast, I did a deep dive listen on Raiders of the Lost Ark, which George Lucas famously collaborated with bestie Steven Spielberg, and hearing some of the initial thoughts. It's just my biggest takeaway is George Lucas is very macro, big ideas, and then when it comes down to the micro, the minute details, that's where he struggles, so to speak. And so it took Spielberg kind of taking over the reins of the micro details. I think Marion, for example, was going to be very, very young, and that was a very uncomfortable thing. And so Spielberg had to step in and say, "Hey, this is not what you want to do." And that kind of makes sense when you think about the relationship of Anakin and Padme. So it's really interesting to take all of that into consideration. So I am very, very excited to see where we go from here. And I didn't know that detail about the after Return of the Jedi. So that is all the more exciting for me.
Well, it is rumored at this time, because her appearance in The Mandalorian was very much after Return of the Jedi, and the indication seems to be that she is. They're going to continue that thread of her looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. So if that's the case, then it would have to be set post Return of the Jedi.
All right, all the more reason to be excited. That wraps up Nerd News for this week. When we come back from this, our first break, we're going to hit you with the Byword Big Talk as we talk everything that came out of DC FanDome. Stick around.
welcome to Go Float Yourself, a podcast about the television show The 100.
We're a brother-sister team here to celebrate the good and roast the bad on one of our favorite sci-fi teen space dramas.
Come for the story and the drama, stay for the funny nicknames, the pet conclaves on our Instagram, and of course, the hauntings.
Oh yeah, did I mention I'm a literal ghost haunting the pod? That's canon.
Find us at Go Float Yourself on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back for this week's Big Talk. And it's been a couple of weeks, some time to set in and season. So not an instant reaction, a let it sit in and settle reaction to DC FanDome 2021. So Dave and I, there's a lot to talk about. It was several hours worth of streaming and content. So we're just going to go line by line of the itemized list that DC has listed on their blog here. And if we have a reaction to it, we'll go. If it's a show we're not watching or something that doesn't really apply, we'll just swat it and move on. First and foremost, they led off with something that's been long anticipated, Dave. The first footage from The Rock Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to go against the grain here and say meh. Like, I know, people would think I'm naturally excited for this kind of thing. I'm a big fan of Captain Marvel, or as he's known these days, Shazam, and his world. And I have been steeped in DC lore for most of my life, it seems. But I'm always kind of weary of them taking a villain and divorcing him from the hero. I think that's one of the problems that we ended up, one of the many problems, with the current Venom movies. When you take Spider-Man out of the equation, you are missing an essential ingredient in that story. And I think the same thing applies here. I'm always excited to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson up on the big screen because I'm a fan of his going back to his wrestling days. And there is something to be said for the excitement of seeing some Justice Society characters on the big screen. I have high hopes for that. But the sneak peek given didn't really particularly excite me. I wished I would have seen something of the Justice Society characters. And ultimately, I wish they would at least start hinting at the idea that Black Adam is going to show up, in a Shazam movie and kind of kindle that rivalry, which really is essential to both of those characters. So once again, we see, this, like, we want to take a villain and spin him off as an anti-hero, and I'm not a big fan of that, Chris. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, I'm much inclined to agree with you there. What you said, the laundry list of problems of the Venom films. The first one was okay. The second one, no comment. Yeah, I'm super excited for this. If for no other reason, like, the anticipation has just set in so much. We've been hearing about this film for so long, and to finally get something, a breadcrumb, was a bit satisfying. But yeah, I think a lot is lost if you don't have that juxtaposition. I mean, that's a central thing of the characters, both Venom and Black Adam. So, as a big fan of, history and mythology, I'm excited to finally see this here. I'm excited to see Dr. Fate on the screen, for Pete's sake. Yeah, I just want some more at this point. But if all goes well, we're looking at the film releasing next year in July.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. I guess the biggest thing to come out of Grant Gustin, who, bless his heart, looks so tired when he was making this announcement, but we're getting golden boots. Is anything there?
Okay, look, I'm just going to talk about the Flash series for a second. I love the early seasons of the Flash series. I love Grant Gustin's portrayal of Barry. What I don't like is when TV shows and movies act as if a hero needs to earn the comic book suit over multiple movies or seasons. I think we're now in season 8 of The Flash, and now they're like, "Ooh, we're tweaking the suit to make it more comic book accurate." And I'm like, could you not have led with that in season 1? Why do we need 8 seasons to get golden boots on The Flash? if that's the biggest news that you can produce for your TV show, maybe it's time to either reevaluate and do some stuff to refresh the show or put it out of its misery. I would have, been more excited if they would have announced, significant changes in the writer's room to get some fresh ideas onto that show, because it has been a little stagnant, to say the least. But yeah, what a news item. We're getting golden boots on The Flash. Congratulations, I guess.
Yeah, I checked out after season 2. I watched the first couple of episodes of season 3, and he just kept screwing up the timeline, and I checked out completely. But golden boots, man.
I mean, it's very much something for the foot fetishists, I guess.
All right, now something I'm very excited about, but we didn't get a whole lot. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So we got a couple of behind the scenes things with Jason Momoa. I was excited to see the new Black Manta costume. I'm excited that he's in the film because that was one of my favorite things about the first film. And then we also got a special look at Aquaman King of Atlantis, which is a 3-part animated series that is on HBO Max. You can watch the first episode right now. Anything under the sea for you, Dave?
Well, it's a James Wan directed project, and I'm a big fan of his, as you already know, going to his horror movies. And I really, really like the first Aquaman movie and what it did. I do think that the biggest problem of that movie was how it kind of dispatched of Black Manta halfway through and didn't have room for him in the finale of the movie. He just kind of vanished from the story. So I'm glad that he's back. I really like the suit. It's very comic book accurate, which, when people say big clamshell head like that wouldn't work on the big screen, I guess it would. So I'm really, really excited for that. And I'm just excited for the movie in general. The creative team behind it is good. The acting in the first one was good. They have a nice interpretation of Aquaman that I really appreciate. So I'm really there for this, Chris.
All right, now we roll on to probably one of my favorite reveals or events of the day, and that is Milestone Media. So we had an extensive sit-down conversation with host Echo Kellum, with Dennis Cowan and Reggie Hudlin about the state of DC's Milestone Initiative, which is a program with Ally. And they are looking to encourage, comic book artists, writers, editors of color, and kind of get a hand up in creating comics. So that's really fascinating. Also, we're getting new seasons for Static, Hardware, and Icon, and Rocket, and the one that was very, very anticipated, Blood Syndicate comic book is coming back. So, Dave, you previously told me all about Milestone, and it is definitely on my to-read list.
Yeah, I think the most exciting stuff to come out of this, besides the comic book stuff, and seeing that, that they're going to continue to try to put out stuff, and preferably, with people of color in the creative team, is for me, that they're going to make a new quote-unquote season for Static. I think Static was one of the better animated series to run during its time, and I really, really enjoyed it. And this 1,300-page softcover compendium that they're going to put out, collecting classic Milestone runs of Static, Icon, Hardware, and more, that compendium, I think, is going to be sorely needed, because I think Milestone has kind of fallen off the radar for some comic book fans, and putting some of those classic stories back into print and back into people's hands is going to be, extremely essential for the future success of the imprint. I will say a 1,300-page softcover compendium is all nice and dandy. I'm pretty sure that sucker's going to run $50-$60 at the least. I wished they would rather reprint these, cheaper, so they can get them into more people's hands, not just, current dedicated fans, but also people who, just are looking for more books with leads that are people of color. I think a cheaper approach would give them more bang for their buck in promoting the new Milestone initiative. But just the fact that Milestone is making this kind of comeback is a huge positive in my book.
Yeah, for sure. I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of those are being uploaded digitally to DC Universe Infinite. So if you're just wanting to read the stories, I would definitely check out that service.
Absolutely.
All right, next up, I have some complex feelings on this one, and I know that you have a big issue with it, Dave. But we got some more game footage, or not necessarily gameplay footage, but cinematic footage of Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, which the title alone is, oh boy.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I am sick of evil Superman. Get out of here with that crap. This is it's the tropiest of tropes. People who don't know how to write Superman just go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to do a story where he turns bad. You know what? How about you go back to writing school and figure out how to write Superman? It's not exactly rocket surgery. That rant being said, my problem with this game, as good as it looks and as fun as the gameplay looks and all, is right in the title, Kill the Justice League. I don't want to kill the Justice League. Like that it's really that simple for me, Chris. I don't want to kill the Justice League. I have no urge to kill any of those heroes. Well, Hal Jordan maybe. I mean, he's real. No, I'm kidding.
No.
But really, I don't like the basic premise of it, I guess.
Yeah, and the first time you bring Jon Stewart in narratively, we're killing him? Like, what the crap? Of all the times, I saw someone said, of all the times to stick with Hal Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. He's not, he's kind of a stick in the mud among the Green Lanterns, I would say. But yeah, does this look perfectly crafted? Absolutely. Will the gameplay be a crap ton of fun? Well, most likely. It's Rocksteady after all. But is this really what I'm looking for in a superhero-based video game? Evil Superman and Suicide Squad trying to kill Justice League members? Not really. It's just not my cup of tea. For those who are into it, more power to you. But much like Zack Snyder's Justice League, I'm just going to have to say hard pass.
All right, next up, coming out of the Suicide Squad, we had a big panel discussion with the stars and crew between a Peacemaker, the upcoming series for HBO Max with director James Gunn, and series stars John Cena as Peacemaker, Daniel Brooks as Adebayo, Freddie Stroma as Vigilante, Jennifer Holland as Harcourt, Steve Agee as Economos, Chukwudi Iwuji as Myrn, and Robert Patrick as Augie Smith. And we also got, again, like I said, our first look kind of trailer, I guess, including a sure-to-be new favorite character, Eagly. Dave, what are your thoughts on this?
Eagly. You did steal the show, didn't you? Look, of all the things that to come out of the Suicide Squad, the one thing I didn't think that I would want is a Peacemaker show. I mean, there were plenty of characters on there that I wanted more of, but Peacemaker, and I said this in our review, is the one character in the whole movie, besides maybe Amanda Waller, that shows absolutely no redeeming qualities. He never has a moment of humanity. So maybe the TV show will fix that, will rectify that. But, it's not the character that I would have preferred to see spun off into a show. That being said, the trailer looked like a lot of fun, and I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same feelings. It's the one character that I would have been like meh about having their own series. Like, give me a Bloodsport solo, give me a Ratcatcher 2 solo, or a King Shark series. But yeah, so I'm yet to be won over by this. The trailer was okay for me. I'm interested to see more.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. We're gonna have to sit down and watch that first episode to kind of get a full picture of it. All
right, so next up we have a little bit of Superman stuff. Coming kind of zooming out, there wasn't a whole lot of super things with this. We had a 20-year reunion from Smallville. We had a first look at this new, is this a book series with Superman and Lois? It looks kind of like anime vibes. And
now that's a new cartoon series. Yeah,
new cartoon
Adventures with Superman. Yeah,
and then probably the biggest thing to come out of this, the most newsworthy, if you will, is Superman's official mission statement is truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, and that made the right-wing idiots lose their britches. So, Dave, what is your overall, I guess, of all this Soups news?
Oh yeah, so looking back at some of the stuff that they talked about, having a look at Superman and Lois and the Kent farm, that was cute. Looking back on Supergirl, I kind of dropped out of that show after a while, although I really did enjoy, the first couple of seasons of it. But that show is coming to an end, so I understand why they took some time to say goodbye to it. I'm really psyched for my adventures with Superman. I think that whole thing looks like it could be a lot of fun. I like the designs. It has a little bit of touch of an anime thing, and it really looks to have a strong, powerful Lois at the center of it, which that's how I like my Lois Lane, a force of nature after all. The retrospective of Smallville was fun to me because I watched that show religiously when it was on TV. It was about the only Superman we got during that time, even though it was mostly just Clark Kent moping. There were some fun episodes in there, and a really cool interpretation of Green Arrow, I will freely admit. So to me, the most exciting thing that they've announced probably is My Adventures with Superman. I'm really excited to watch that animated series. Now, as far as the Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow thing, for an extensive take on that, please feel free to visit my my Twitter account at @ThatNerdDave, where I had a kerfuffle with former Superman actor Dean Cain, and I ended up kind of dissecting a op-ed he wrote about this change over the course of like 25 tweets. Highly recommend it. I think you'll enjoy it. But really what it comes down to is that there is no real problem with Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. I think in this day and age, defining the American way is extremely difficult. I guess that's the best way to put it. If you go back to, the 40s or 50s, when they really started using truth, justice, and the American way, we're talking about, a time period where we were just out of World War II, and we're into the Cold War, and there's a strong juxtaposition between, the American way and the Soviet way. So there's some historical context. And so I think the characters kind of aged out of that particular slogan, because I guess the best way to put it is the things that used to define the American way, freedom, democracy, that sort of thing, are much more common in the particularly in the developed world today than they used to be. It's hard to look at Europe, for example, and say that they don't have democracy or freedom. Whereas if you go back, a couple of decades, 2-3 decades, you end up with stuff like the Berlin Wall. You end up with stuff with the Soviet bloc. So there have been significant changes, and so the American way doesn't really juxtapose Superman anymore as well as I guess it used to. So Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow is actually a really good slogan for the 2020s, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. I mean, having him be an exclusively American hero is not only a misnomer, but it's so incredibly limiting. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, he saves people around the world, not just in America. He's literally from another planet, although he was adopted and, in the American mindset, Heartland USA. But I mean, it's just like we said before, like a bunch of sound and fury signifying nothing. It's just,
dude, he rebuilt the Great Wall of China with his eye beams in Superman 3. Of course, he's a global hero.
And not to say that I'm in defense of Dean Cain, but to keep it all 100, as the kiddies say, he hasn't studied for the role of Superman in over 25 years, so he's not really up to date on his snuff, while he does study for his role on Fox and Friends on at least a weekly basis, so there is that.
Shots fired.
Yeah, so, not necessarily up to date on this information, and just as the Tomorrow Man, I mean, come on, it's right there. It's right there. All right, now to switch to the animal kingdom, DC's League of Super Pets. we are looking for a full trailer in November, and it is a big screen animation feature. So the movie features a voice cast of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Kevin Hart, who just are completely inseparable, it would appear, Vanessa Bayer, John Krasinski, Diego Luna, Natasha Lyonne, Kate McKinnon, and Keanu Reeves. So this looks like a family-friendly kind of DC mashup, and I'm super excited about this one.
They've done, this kind of thing before. I mean, we had a Crypto, the Superdog animated series. There've been Super Pets comic books in the past. I think it's interesting that they decided to go all in and actually make this a big screen adaptation rather than something for HBO Max. They must really feel like they've got something here, and I'm pretty excited to see what they do with this.
Yeah, and that will hit big screens May 20th of next year. So then we hit a little bit of a show that admittedly I am ashamed to say that I have not dove all the way into yet, Doom Patrol. And everything that I've seen from it, it looks like it's right up my alley. So then we got just kind of a mid-season trailer and some conversation with the cast. Anything to say about Doom Patrol, Dave? I'm grasping for straws here.
Watch it. I mean, that's really all I can say. I think the show has been renewed for season 4, and I think watching this show is the closest thing a straight arrow like me will ever get to sitting around with Grant Morrison and doing drugs. That's what this show feels like. Feels like 90% from the mind of Grant Morrison and 10% drug-induced fever dream. I mean, it is such a unique show. It's one of the most interesting and unique takes on superheroes currently being produced. And anybody who's not watching it needs to wake up and needs to watch this show.
Oh man, it's always been. It's literally added to my list on HBO Max and everything. I just have so much content right now, but this might move to the top of the list because everything I've heard is right in line with what you're saying.
Oh, it is the craziest stuff on TV. It is so bizarre and out there, never boring, always entertaining.
All right, so Much Ado About Nothing seems to be the theme today, but Dave, we got our first look at Ezra Miller's The Flash.
Man, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. Like, I looked at the footage, and okay, what you're really doing with this footage is you're not telling me anything about the Flash, except for apparently there's 2 versions of him in this one. You redesigned his suit, which looks a little better, but the cowl looks booty. I don't know what's going on there. It looks like some kind of weird Lego helmet stuck over his face.
I'm still stuck on the golden boots, so I was like, does he mean boot-like or like butthole?
No, it's booty, not golden boots. I can assure you, it's more cheeky than that. It's like really bulky. It looks like the kind of helmet you would put on like a Lego figure or something. I don't know how they couldn't figure that one out, considering the TV show suit's cowl looks significantly better. But the biggest problem I'm just seeing is that all the teases and everything were really towards Michael Keaton's Batman returning and not really anything with the Flash. And that is, of course, my ultimate problem with this movie is I want a Flash movie, and I'm not sure if this is going to be that. So, meh.
Yeah, it was underwhelming to me as well. I was excited to see, even for a snap second, Sasha Calle's Supergirl. But then, in a movie that's supposed to be teasing about the multiverse and multiple versions of multiple characters, we got not one, but 2 Ezra Millers. Like, okay. So it was highly underwhelming. And then the whole big thing, they really are milking this for all of it. So like the whole, just the Keaton from behind and then not even revealing him. It was okay, buddy.
Look, I mean, in Justice League, 1 Ezra Miller was about half of an Ezra Miller too many already. I don't know how I'm going to do with 2. I mean, that exceeds my quota by about 1.5 Ezra Millers, which apparently is now a scientific measurement, so.
But they gave him a bad wig, so maybe...
Oh yeah, that is going to make all the difference in his portrayal of Barry Allen. A wig. I'm excited now.
Jesse Eisenberg sends his regards.
Oh, good golly! Maybe they just dyed that wig and put it on him. Maybe that's like the
Yeah.
same wig. That wig is getting more traction than Henry Cavill as Superman right now.
I'll never forget what you said when BVS came out, and kindest regards and memoriams to the poor animal that gave its life for that hairpiece.
It did look like some dead animal sprawled across his head. It's not okay. It just was not okay.
All right,
Oh man.
now into something that, in contrast, I'm very excited about: Sandman. We got our first look of Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer Morningstar, and holy Lord, I cannot be more excited about this project, Dave. I mean, you're a big Neil Gaiman head. Just go off.
Oh, I'm ready, dude. I am so ready for this. Everything that Neil Gaiman has said on social media about what they're doing behind the scenes, the set visit that we had a few months back, where he kind of walked around the set. Now this reveal of Gwendolyn Christie, dude. It's Vertigo, it's Neil Gaiman, it's Sandman. We are getting a live-action adaptation of Sandman. My mind is blown in about 40 different ways, and I am so hyped for this. This is bigger than anything that they're slapping on the big screen to me. Anytime that we get a Vertigo adaptation, especially one that is fully supported by the original creators and looks to really try to capture the essence of the property, man, I'm all there for this. Let's just say that this is not going to be Why the Last Man, which was a really lackluster adaptation and rightfully was canceled after one season. This looks like it's going to be the real deal, and I'm so here for it.
Oh, I meant to get your thoughts on that. See, I'm still in the first like 5 or 6 issues, and then I was surprised to see that. So it was underwhelming.
Yeah, read the comic book. That's the best thing I can tell you. As in so many cases, the source material far exceeds the interpretation.
Yeah, so as far as Sandman goes, super excited about that, and I cannot wait for this.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
All right, so one of the funniest things about DC FanDome is that the much maligned new animation film Injustice, they force us to watch extensive clips from this, and it was not great.
Yeah, you know what? I just said it. I'll say it again. I am sick and tired of evil Superman. Tired of it. No, thank you.
That's it. That's all. Now another one that I'm super. I feel like a seismograph here because I'm super excited again. We finally got the first look an interview with Xolo Maridueña for Blue Beetle, and Jaime Reyes, like, it's a perfect casting. I cannot wait for this. And we got the first look at the suit. It looks freaking amazeballs, Dave. I cannot wait for Blue Beetle.
Yeah, they definitely seem to have captured the essence of Blue Beetle in their visual design of the suit. The casting is spot on. The only sin that this movie is definitely guilty of is, why in the world is this an HBO Max thing?
Yeah,
why is this not going to be on the big screen? I do not understand this. Blue Beetle has, the Jaime Reyes version of Blue Beetle, let me correct myself, has developed a high enough profile through, appearances in animated shows and the like, an appearance on Smallville back in the day. I mean, the character has popped up in enough places that people have an awareness of him that probably exceeds a lot of other comic book heroes. And so if they go ahead and slap the sucker on the big screen, I think they could have serious success with this. The original run of the Blue Beetle comic, I always likened to DC's version of Ultimate Spider-Man. There's no reason that, DC couldn't have Spider-Man-like success on the big screen. Why are you popping this on a streaming service? It's just unforgivable.
Yeah. All right, next up, coming out of the popularity of the character from DC's Festival of Heroes, The Monkey Prince is getting its own 12-issue comic book series from writer Gene Lin Yang and Bernard Chang. Dave, do you have any familiarity with The Monkey Prince?
I do not, although I have to say the art has really got me intrigued, just looking at the preview image here. I need to check this sucker out. Did you read The Monkey Prince at all?
I did not, but I'm intrigued as well.
Yeah, I think there might be something here. Of course, it blows my mind that we have a Monkey Prince 12-issue series, but there are so many DC heroes that we can't get featured in a comic book. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. Like Hawkman? Anybody? Hawkman? The
Yeah,
Question?
I will
Anybody?
say that Gene Luen Yang is writing the current Shang-Chi series, and we read that for hashtag Drunk Pete, the first issue, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. So they're writing this series as well. So I'm definitely going to check it out.
Oh, just a fantastic writer. So hey, you sold me now. Now I'm definitely checking it out.
All right, next up, something that I am super excited for as well. The Court of Owls is going to be making its appearance in the video game verse in Gotham Knights. What do you think about this, Dave?
Yeah, Gotham Knights is one of those one of those things I'm actually pretty excited about. I like the idea of having sort of a Batman family video game that takes the spotlight off of Batman and goes towards sort of the more secondary characters that are in his orbit. I think that's one of the big mistakes that cinematic Batmen keep making, in that we never get a Robin, a Batgirl, really. The Batman world never really extends the way it has in the comics. And although, loner Batman stories are good, there is a lot of fun to be had in looking at his relationships with these various extended characters. So, yeah, I mean, you're giving me a game where I can play as Nightwing or Batgirl, and I'm very, very interested in this. Now, the Court of Owls is, of course, very interesting. It was very well executed back when it first debuted by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. I do think we don't need the Court of Owls and everything, so I hope that they don't go this route of the Joker and try to slap the Court of Owls and everything and overexpose that concept. But as it looks right now, I'm kind of into it.
All right, next up, a property that is hotly contested with the back and forth he said, she said, he said with Ruby Rose and the current cast of Batwoman. This show is returning for its third season. Anything to comment on Batwoman, Dave?
I am going to freely admit that I fell off the wagon during season 2. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the new Batwoman. I don't think the writing has been there for me to really captivate me. I was also really weirded out that they ended up recasting Ruby Rose's character after all, when they decided initially that they wouldn't do that, and they did, guess what, some face altering stuff, which is what I suggested to begin with. I'm just a big fan of Kate Kane as a character, and seeing Batwoman basically without Kate Kane, especially when they're trying desperately to keep her twin sister, the villainous Alice, in the mix, which I don't think quite works because she doesn't have that relationship with Batwoman. There isn't that dynamic of the twin sisters, one good, one evil, and trying to save the villainous one. All of that stuff has just kind of gone out of the window. So I feel like a lot of the complexity has left the show. Now, they might be turning things around, and it might have improved a lot since I tuned out. But I'm just not really up to date enough on the show to speak much of it.
Okay, Dave, this was one of the unexpected exciting things. I'm a huge Elizabeth Gillies fan, and she is going to be voicing Selena Kyle herself in Catwoman Hunted. It's just coming out February the 8th, 2022. The trailer we got from this was incredible, and I can't be more excited about this one.
Yeah, this looks really, really, really good and came out of nowhere. And the most exciting thing, of course, about the design of Catwoman in this particular animated movie is that she doesn't have underarm holes in her suit, which I really appreciate given the current design in the comic books. I still don't know what the reason is for underarm holes in a suit for a cat burglar. I don't know. Any people into underarms or something? I really don't get it. But yeah, seeing Kate Kane Batwoman in this looks really exciting, and yeah, just that they're willing to give Catwoman the spotlight in sort of her own story like that is just really, really cool, and I'm here for this.
All right, then we went on to DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and which is coming back for its 7th season, or just kicked off its 7th season. and they gave us 100 episodes in 100 seconds. Are you watching this one at all, Dave?
I've kind of fallen off the wagon of this one too, but I will freely admit this is the goofy, fun, easygoing TV show if you want to, just engage in some odd superhero time travel shenanigans. I've had a shocking amount of fun with this show, considering how poorly it started out. I think the first season was really rough. But when they decided to just say, okay, we're just going to throw everything against the wall, we're going to get goofy, we're just going to have fun with this, we're not going to take ourselves seriously, I think this show really started shining. And the fact that they're actually hitting a seventh season, they're going to have 100 episodes, really blows my mind, all things considered, because that first season was not good and it was not well received by fans. So, kudos to Legends of Tomorrow for finding their niche, finding their tone, and continuing to entertain.
All right, next up we've got Batman Unburied, which is an original narrative podcast, executive produced by David S. Goyer, and is coming next year to Spotify. It will star Gina Rodriguez as Barbara Gordon. Will also feature Sam Witwer, who's an amazing voice actor, as the serial killer, the Harvester, Emmy Raver-Lampman as Kel, and Jessica Marie Garcia as Renee Montoya, and Jim Peary as Arnold Flass. Any thoughts on this one, Dave?
Well, first, you said Renee Montoya, which is like one of my all-time favorite characters, especially when she became the Question in the comic books. It's just one of my all-time favorite characters. I love Renee Montoya. You said narrative podcast, and I love me some podcasts, as you can tell, because of what I'm doing right now. I don't appreciate the competition, Batman, but I think I'm definitely going to check this one out. It sounds like something I'll put on in the car ride to work every morning.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had Batgirl actress Leslie Grace, and kind of like this conversation. There wasn't a whole lot revealed, except that she is going to have a full cowl and red hair. So any thoughts on Batgirl?
So here's the thing about this one. Once again, I think we have to be careful so we don't get the Black Adam Venom effect. You're spinning off a character from whom is my question. Like, who's Batman that this Batgirl is interacting with, that she's spinning off from? Is it Affleck's Batman? Is he going to reprise the role in a cameo? Is it, Michael Keaton's Batman popping up? Like, I'm all for a Batgirl movie. I'm all for a Nightwing movie. I'm all for that. But you have to define who they're spinning off from, and, all of that entails. I mean, if you're saying that this Batgirl exists in a world of, Affleck's Batman, that sets a certain tone. If you say that this Batgirl exists in a Michael Keaton Batman world, that sets a certain tone. Right now, it feels like they're just going to go off and do their own thing and completely divorce Batgirl from Batman. And I'm not sure that is the best way to go. I mean, how do you tell the story of Batgirl without the inspiration for her Batman? How do you tell a Nightwing story without explaining his time as Robin with, you guessed it, Batman? Batman is really an overexposed character in the media. And I'm not really advocating I need more Batman or something, but I do think we have to draw clear defining lines for these characters of what version of Batman they relate to.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just, there's so much about the DCEU that I know that they don't want to copy and paste what the MCU has done, but I think it's a bit of an overcorrection that we're just like, this is a popular character and we don't need to worry about laying the foundation. And I think that's a huge misstep.
I totally agree. A little bit of world building goes a long way.
All right, next up is a show that I have a complicated relationship with. I really want to love it, specifically for Anna Diop Starfire, who all the clips of I'm just completely enraptured with. But I just can't seem to get through the drudgery of the grit for grit's sake. But Titans is getting its fourth season. Are you watching Titans, Dave?
I am not. I gave it the first season and I gave up. And it is exactly as you said. This seems to be the less handsome, less well-articulate cousin of Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's gritty, it's dark, it's muted colors, which is like really weird. They really lean heavily into Nightwing's connection to Batman, and so all the Titan stories are suddenly like related now to Batman. I think the last season was exclusively in Gotham City, and they were all hanging out in Wayne Manor in every episode, and that's not the Titans in any way, shape, or form. The bright, colorful costumes and all of that has gone out of the window for this show, and that grit is just not for me. So I'm waiting for a better interpretation of Titans to come along.
Yeah, everybody knows that grits require cheese and or sugar, so just plain grits is disgusting. All right, next up, we are back at the top of the roller coaster, Dave, with an absolutely perfect, flawless, impeccable show, Harley Quinn, and a sneak peek at season 3.
Yeah, just give me more. Like, I love this show. I think it's hilarious. It's a very weird interpretation of some of the characters. I love their take on Commissioner Gordon. Cracks me up in every way, shape, or form. And I will also go ahead and plug real quick that if you're having some Harley Quinn withdrawals right now, to just read the comic book series that is taking place between season 2 and 3, the Eat, Bang, Kill tour is absolutely fantastic, really, really enjoyable, and had just a great cameo by Hush, by the way, which was absolutely uproariously hilarious. So if you're not reading the Eat Bang Kill, if you're not reading the Eat Bang Kill tour, you need to start now. It is very, very good.
Oh, the ways in which I love this show. My favorite clip ever is in the first season when she's asking what she wants when they're ordering Thai food. That whole clip is just perfection. Go search like on YouTube for the ordering Thai food Harley Quinn, because it's the most accurate thing, especially if you've ever been in a long-term relationship. And it's like the whole what do you want to eat thing. It's so perfect. And Lake Bell as Poison Ivy is one of my favorite things ever, and my personal favorite character interpretation is Clayface. I love the thespian Clayface. It is my fave.
Yeah, I'm there for it, man.
All right, one that I'm super psyched for is Batman Caped Crusader. Like, Bruce Timm is back. J.J. Abrams, okay, I guess he's there. Matt Reeves. Why is J.J. Abrams in every freaking thing?
Can we get lens flares in a Batman animated series? I'm just not sure that's going to work, man.
How does that work in noir? But I am nonetheless excited about this all new animated series, Dave.
You know, there's so little known about it. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so you have Matt Reeves involved, but we've not seen his take on Batman yet on the big screen. You have J.J. Abrams, he just has his fingers on everything, so that doesn't really tell us much. You have Bruce Timm, who is an absolute legend due to his work on the original Batman the Animated Series, which was so good. But yeah, I mean, what is there to say about this other than the ears look really weird? On the suit from the promo image. I know this harkens back more to like his 1930s and 40s design. So okay, I can accept like oddly shaped ears, no problem. But there's so little known about this take on Batman. They very specifically say that it is reimagining the Batman mythology and that it's set in a timeless world that harkens to the 1940s. Now, I do feel that Batman the Animated Series did that to some extent. A lot of their designs sort of were 40s inspired, right down to people wearing like fedoras and stuff sometimes. So I'm all for trying to create sort of a timeless noir sensibility. But there's just too little known about this for me to get particularly excited, especially considering we're getting like 40 different Batman takes at any given time. It's really going to have to do something to set itself apart because, Batman's just everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the detective noir thing is based in the character that is my favorite aspect of the character. So seeing that return to roots is another thing that I'm excited for with the Pattinson Batman film. So I am excited. I know nothing. Like, we're barely getting crumbs at all.
Yeah, that's true. It's going to be a while till we get more, I think.
All right. Next up is a very popular show that my friends have bullied and peer pressured me into finally starting. But I'm a ways back. I'm still in season 1. Young Justice Phantoms was given a first look trailer and a surprise announcement that on that day, the first 2 episodes of the season were streaming on HBO Max. Are you a Young Justice fan, Dave?
I am actually. I think it's the second best iteration of the DC universe, besides the comics, as far as adaptations go. Right after the whole DC animated universe situation, Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, Justice League Unlimited, that sort of world that they built. I think this is probably the second best take as far as adaptations of the DC universe goes. And I'm thrilled that they made a comeback. I mean, they had 2 seasons, then they were gone for a long time. Then they got, a 3rd season, which was quite good, had some problems, which, which stories don't these days. So them doing another one, I'm all here for it. I'm definitely going to be watching this. I do really enjoy the series.
All right, next up is a director that I'm a huge fan of and still crushed that they canceled her New Gods. Ava DuVernay and Robert Patino were talking about their upcoming limited series on HBO Max, DMZ. This is an adaptation of the acclaimed Vertigo series by Brian Wood and Riccardo Buccielli. Any thoughts on this one, Dave?
You know what? You had to bring this up. This is, to my great shame of all my love for Vertigo, I've actually not read DMZ. It is a book that keeps eluding me. I kind of tell myself I'm going to read it, and then I don't. And so I really need to pick that up and finally read it. I feel like that's one of my Vertigo blind spots. So I really don't have much to say about this other than it's cool that Rosario Dawson is in it because I'm a huge fan of hers. I don't think she can do anything wrong, frankly, as far as acting goes. It's interesting to me that Rosario Dawson is playing a new character that is only loosely inspired by one of the characters in the original series. That means that we're looking at probably not so much an adaptation as a reinterpretation. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. And then Ava DuVernay has another hit series coming up, Naomi. And we got our first look at that. This character is based on the best-selling comic book created by Brian Michael Bendis, David F. Walker, and Jamal Campbell. And the first look, unfortunately, had her succumbing to Jean Grey syndrome.
Oh, great. That's all we needed. Well, look, I have complex feelings about Naomi right now. On the one hand, the original series introducing her was very good. On the other hand, it's Brian Michael Bendis. So, that comes with a certain amount of luggage.
The other thing, powers yet?
Yeah, it's kind of in the comic books. It's kind of complex because they keep playing around with it. She's from another universe, and so her powers are kind of ill-defined. I mean, she flies and she's pretty strong, but other than that, we don't really get a good sense. I mean, Bendis started including her in his run on Justice League, but I'll freely admit I've kind of fallen behind on that, and it did feel a little odd and out of place for a brand new character to just kind of be shoehorned into the Justice League book like that, which is usually all the big guns. Considering especially that she's a young hero, it would have been fun to see her in something like Teen Titans first or something. But the character overall is very interesting, and having somebody of DuVernay's stature behind this and kind of steering it, I'm very interested to see where the series goes.
All right, next up, one of our favorite underrated films of the DCEU, Shazam. We got our first look at the sequel, not a whole lot, just behind-the-scenes stuff, but I'm excited that they're diving into the mythology and just being reminded that Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu are going to be playing the villains in this. Does not come out till 2023, but any kind of thoughts on this one, Dave?
Well, considering the sucker doesn't come out till 2023, I think we're just going to have to kick back and wait, and we're going to be in it for the long haul. I think we're probably going to see significantly more about this movie in next year's DC FanDome. So I'm just going to stay cautiously optimistic because I like the first one so much and take a wait-and-see approach.
All right, the next one was an extensive conversation between the original Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, and Patty Jenkins in celebration of the 80th anniversary. where they talked a lot about the influence of the character, what she means to so many people, and introduced the hashtag Wonder Woman Spin Challenge. Dave, did you partake in that?
I'm not much into the spin thing, but I will say, just as a general thing, that I don't think DC is doing enough to celebrate the 80th anniversary of Wonder Woman. I think that we saw much more significant celebrations for Batman and Superman when they hit that milestone, and I'm a little disappointed that DC is not doing more to celebrate Wonder Woman. There's an 80th anniversary special, a 100-page special coming out, and that seems to be about it. And that's hugely regrettable in my book.
All right, probably the thing on that same area of the DC universe that I'm most excited about, Dave, that features all of the Amazons, Trial of the Amazons, the first Wonder Woman crossover in several years. And it involves everybody that is in the Wonder universe. So Yara Flor, Nubia, who has her new fantastic series by friend of the show Stephanie Williams and Vida Ayala, and of course Diana herself. This is a power struggle that will redefine the future of all the Amazonian tribes. So writers on the event are going to include Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, who are writing the current Diana series, Vida Ayala and Stephanie Williams, who are, of course, writing the Nubia series, Joelle Jones and Jordi Belair, who are on the Wonder Girl series with Yara. The action kicks off in the first issue of Nubia and the Amazons, which went on sale October 19th, and is my nerd commendation of all nerd commendations. Go read that book. And then National Wonder Woman Day, which we just celebrated on October the 21st. So I'm super excited about this one. And this will be probably my first big DC crossover that I'm reading live, Dave. I'm not jumping ship. I'm taking the ferry, but I'm very excited about this.
I'm just telling you, as long as it's better than Amazon's Attack, I'm going to be happy. What an atrocious book that was. Oh my God. So I'm just going to help you out a little bit here, because the next two things that they talked about was Sweet Tooth and Pennyworth, two shows that I have not watched and have no comment on. Have you watched either of those shows?
Nope, but I've heard good things about Sweet Tooth, so I might check that one out. But Pennyworth, I mean, like, do we really need that story?
No, I don't think so. But maybe I'm wrong. It's a fantastic show. But I think it's time to skip to the highlight of this whole thing and just talk about how they wrap this sucker up. So what have you got, Chris?
I mean, Zoe Kravitz, and it's her world, and we're just living in it.
That's about right, that's actually. All. So now we're done. Okay, so that's the byword for this week. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
All right, go ahead, Dave. Give us your thoughts on the second Batman trailer.
Well, I know. I'm glad we have that definite article to differentiate it from all the other Batman movies. This one looked really, really good. Like, it looks so different visually from other interpretations of Batman. So I'm really, really excited for it. I'm still not 100% sold on Robert Pattinson as Batman. I really want to see more of his performance. There isn't a whole lot in the trailer, but I will say I am totally sold, as you are, on Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. Every shot in the trailer, she just embodies that character perfectly. I showed the trailer to my wife, and she took one look at Zoe Kravitz and said, "Oh, that's Catwoman, isn't it?" I mean, it's such a perfect performance, I think, from what we've seen from the trailer, and I can't wait to see more of it. I love the tone of the movie so far from what we've seen. I like the look, the way they've put it together visually. I think there's really, really something here. And I want to watch this thing already. I'm just ready to really dive in, because all these teases, they're not enough to really judge the thing. And I don't feel like, being one of those trailer dissection guys that sits there and talks an hour about a 2-minute trailer. There's just not enough here to really, create a full image of what this movie is. But there's definitely something here that is unique, that's different, and I'm here for it. I want to see more.
Yeah, I think between these two trailers, which, like, it's really fascinating how they combine different elements in each trailer. I can't think of two trailers for a film that I've been more hyped for, that have sold me. so much. Like, I'm super excited about this. Thankfully, March is right around the corner. We'll blink and we'll be there. But I'm super excited for this one. Just the detective aspects, like I referenced before, of going back to those roots and just a distinctly unique take on the character. I'm pretty sold on Arpats. So maybe we'll get Kristen Stewart as the Joker, one of your personal faves, Dave. But yeah,
That would be an open mouth smile at all times.
I'm super excited about this one. I also love this poster and the red and the black one, giving real Batman Beyond vibes here. So I'm just intrigued how they're sticking to the roots, but in some ways making it their own, because how many freaking Batman stories have we had? And yet the ability to tell something that's unique and different and stands out, that leads, I think, into so much anticipation for this, because we should be having Batman fatigue at this point. But like, this was far and away the most anticipated thing to come out of the entire event.
Absolutely. And they knew what they had because they saved it until the end.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that is the Byword Big Talk for this week. What are your thoughts on DC FanDome? You know, it's been a couple of weeks, so you've had time to sit and stew. Be sure to hit us up on social media with your thoughts as well. But when we come back, we are finally saying goodbye to the nerd nightmare with The Shining.
Sup everyone, Brian here, host of TV Trivia Pod, the podcast about TV trivia. Tune in and answer questions from your favorite shows, like The Office. For example, what's the name of Jan's candle company? What are the 3 themed rooms at Dwight's Bed and Breakfast? And what does Kevin say is the trick in making his famous chili? I'll be finishing The Office soon and moving on to Harry Potter and Marvel trivia after that. So check out TV Trivia Pod, play along, and listen anywhere you get podcasts. And as always, stay tuned for more trivia.
All right, Dave, nerd nightmare. Time to switch the chairs and the turntables here. So let me have it.
Yeah, so by fan vote on social media, we are discussing this week our final nerd nightmare of the year, The Shining, a 1980 psychological horror film produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick. The film, of course, is based on Stephen King's 1977 novel of the same name. The movie stars notably, of course, Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers, and Danny Lloyd. The movie tells the story of Jack Torrance, an aspiring writer and recovering alcoholic. He accepts a position as the off-season caretaker of the Overlook Hotel in the Colorado Rockies with his wife Wendy and his son Danny. And of course, things go horribly wrong because really 2 reasons. Danny is gifted with something called the Shining, a psychic ability that allows him to see the hauntings of this hotel and its horrific past. And then there's a winter storm, and they get cut off from the outside world, and Jack slowly loses his mind as the hotel's ghosts sort of start getting to him. Now, I want to go ahead and say up front, before I get your reaction, that I have decidedly mixed feelings on this movie. On the one hand, I love the performances, and I love the direction, and it's very, very well made. On the other hand, I'm a huge Stephen King head, and some of the deviations that this movie took from the book, I think did a poor job of serving the story that King told. So, that being said, Chris, thoughts on The Shining?
First and foremost, this movie has not aged well. The blatant use of the N-word was deeply disturbing and uncomfortable. And then the only black character in the film, one of 2 black characters in the film, the only primary character is immediately killed. So that is very, very traumatizing and disturbing. So that did not age well. Aside from that, this was not scary at all. Part of that, I think, is probably the slow burn of it all. So it was this gradual descent into madness. Jack Nicholson plays an to a great degree. I mean, like, we've seen him in so many different iterations. Like, that's something he does quite well. We're looking at you, as good as it gets, or terms of endearment. So this is his niche. It is also a little bit uncomfortable to see, like, the domestic violence aspect of it all. Granted, this movie was made 41 years ago, but that part is uncomfortable. But I mean, it is a horror movie. Really made me miss my big wheel, man. I used to cruise up and down the sidewalk in that big wheel. The camera work in this film, though, is impeccable. Just the wide pan shots of people coming around corners, particularly those scenes with the big wheel at the ground level, where you see Danny's point of view perspective, was super fascinating, and just as, like, from an artistic point of view, was fascinating. Also made me not miss the Minnesota, South Dakota winters, because that made me feel right at home, and not in a good way. But yeah, so I wasn't terribly scared of this. I did like the psychological aspects of it. The end reveal of him possibly being the spirit that has been in the hotel since the 20s was really cool. But there were several cringe moments that made me distinctly uncomfortable, and that wasn't, the horror aspects of it. But it was an enjoyable experience overall, and I'm looking forward to watching Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, so first of all, kudos as always to Stanley Kubrick, who made an impeccably beautiful movie. I do think that the writing, which was, I think, the script was co-written by Diane Johnson. I think the writing is where the sucker falls apart, and a little bit in the casting. I mean, Jack Nicholson is fantastic. However, Jack Torrance is in a lot of ways Stephen King. I mean, there's a huge chunk of Stephen King in the Torrance character. King himself notably struggled with alcoholism. And so The Shining, in a lot of ways, is a meditation on the effects of alcohol. And so, Jack Torrance, as you noted, is kind of a jerk to begin with. And
there's no really redeeming quality. There's nothing redeeming about this character.
Yes.
So I think that was, like, something that was lost in translation. Of The Descent really didn't catch me as much because he was a jerk to begin with.
That's exactly right, because Jack Nicholson appears crazy from the word go. Right. In this movie, and there is a gradual descent into madness in Stephen King's book that is much more pronounced. There's also some significant differences. One of your complaints kind of get fixed there, in that Scatman Crothers' character, Dick Halloran, actually survives into the sequel. So he pops up again in Dr. Sleep. He doesn't actually, die. And then the ending, of course, of Jack Nicholson's character is actually a story of redemption, where he actually stays behind, when the makes sure that the boiler explodes and takes out the hotel and destroys everything. That was really the ending that Stephen King envisioned, is that moment of rejection of alcohol, basically the moment of redemption, and that is completely lost in this as well. So I will always prefer, I think, the novel over this interpretation of the movie for those reasons, but I can fully admit that the technical skill put into this movie, I mean, Kubrick's direction is flawless in this, even though he did some really horrific things behind the scenes from what I've read, particularly to Shelley Duvall, to get that performance out of her. That's pretty objectionable. But just the technical, like you said, the camera work and stuff, the technical aspect of the movie is pretty flawless. But I do think some stuff was lost in translation that was essential to telling a complete story.
Yeah, and I think if for nothing else, like the influence that this film has on pop culture. I mean, like, so many of the Hallmark scenes I already knew about simply because they're that iconic. So, and a lot of gifs are explained, based on this film too.
Dude, the carpet alone in the hallway of that hotel is iconic, as crazy as that is.
All right, that wraps up our final Nerd Nightmare of 2021. So we'll see you back in October, and Nerd Commendations will return next week. We thank you for joining us for another episode of the Nerd Byword podcast. And if you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the TuneIn Radio app, or nerdbyword.com.
And of course, find us on social media. We love to interact with our listeners. You can find our podcast account at Nerd Byword on Twitter and Instagram, and we are there individually as well at That Nerd Kris and at That Nerd Dave.
And as always, stay well and stay nerdy.
The Nerd Byword is written and produced by Kris and Dave, two nerds with a love of all things pop culture. The podcast features music by Al Jimenez with additional drops composed by Joe Biondi. Our show art is by Ashery Design. Find us at nerdbyword.com and wherever podcasts are available.